Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And obviously, Holy Paladin is a little bonkers right now. I logged on one, made it right off the rip, and in basically almost under an hour, got my 1800 Elite Transmog. I wanted to give you a quick start guide on the Holy Paladin so you can start smashing face and start getting some rating. There are nerfs coming into the Paladin spec, specifically going to be targeting its mana, but I think it's still going to be a pretty strong contender. So if you're really interested in checking it out and trying to use it and abuse it to get some rating, then this type of video is going to be great for you to take some of the lessons that I learned so you don't need to go through the pain of learning them yourself. So one of the main focuses of the Holy Paladin in this patch is going to be keeping Glimmer on multiple targets. And what is Glimmer? Glimmer is applied to the target when you Holy Shock them. So you're going to want to Holy Shock basically a different target every single time until you've got Glimmer on basically the entire game, both enemy targets and allies. The more Glimmers that you proc, the more chances you're going to have to reset your Holy Shocks, which then just continue to feed into this chain reaction of Holy Shocks and Glimmer. So start the game right away by just getting Holy Shock and Glimmer onto both of your allies. Try to get it on yourself. You want to cast Tears Deliverance at the start of the fight, usually behind the pillar as you see enemy attackers incoming. This can be a really good way to start the game so that you got a lot of effective healing. In this situation, I didn't cast it behind the pillar, and this may ultimately lead into a very dangerous situation. You do normally want Tears Deliverance already up before the fight has been engaged. We have Blessing of Summer. We're giving it to our warrior. They're likely going to be a little bit more bursty than our Affliction lock, so we want to give it to the warrior instead. Give the Blessing of Summer to the highest burst class available to your team and kind of observe those specializations. We're going to give Blessing of Freedom to the warlock here so they can try and kite. They've activated a lot of cooldowns, so we're going to activate our Avenging Wrath to match up with the opposing team's cooldowns, and we're going to go for Tears Deliverance. Now, normally pairing these together can be pretty dangerous, but Ret Paladins generally win in the opener, so you want to use a lot of powerful healing effects in the opener on their wing stack and make sure you've got a lot of healing going before it's too late. You really want to stay ahead of the damage, and I'm staying far away from the fight as to avoid being stunned or being repentanced. And if you get this distance, it gives you time to use Denounce. You want to be chucking your Hammer of Wrath as well. Hammer of Wrath is a really good spell, and using Judgment on cooldown. Judgment's going to amplify your Hammer of Wrath and then can have a chance to cause it to heal your whole team for a significant amount. It also just does a lot of damage. So I'm applying Denounce to multiple targets while staying a safe distance and using my Holy Power mostly on those while keeping the distance. Paladin pushes in for Hammer of Justice, but we've extended our Tears Deliverance through Holy Shock spam so much that it's still going to keep healing while we're CC'd. As we come out of crowd control, we can use Blessing of Protection to try and stabilize. Hand of Divinity, while Blessing of Protection is kind of holding the target at low health, and Hand of Divinity is going to make our Holy Lights instant cast and heal for a lot. So if you can cast Hand of Divinity out of range of interrupts or far away from the fight, it's going to be better, and kind of store it to use your Holy Lights a little bit later on. We end up Divine Shielding here. I'm very scared. My lock has no defensive cooldowns. I'd rather bubble early, get this Hand of Divinity off, get the Holy Lights up, extend that to Tears Deliverance even further. You can see that it's still going. This is one of the main reasons that Holy Paladin is absolutely crazy right now. We're going to push forward, get a Hammer of Justice here onto the Holy Paladin. We have an Affliction lock, so we don't really want a Repentance or Blinding Light. If you're playing with a class that uses dots, you've got to be really careful. I'd rather Denounce spam the healer and make them not be able to crit heal, which actually does affect the Holy Paladin's healing output quite a lot, as opposed to Repentancing or using Blinding Light and just breaking all of my Warlock's dots. So definitely pay attention to that in terms of the crowd control that this class is available to it. Now we're just going back to Denouncing and chilling. Our Tears Deliverance is still up at this point in the game, and honestly, they're not targeting the duration of Tears Deliverance. They're targeting its output, and really it's the duration that is making it really powerful. So definitely just be aware. Just keep spamming Holy Shock on as many random targets as you can. Right now I'm focusing most of my Holy Shocks onto the lock. Honestly, may have been better to play the single target Holy Shock build. I'm playing an AoE Holy Shock build, which is to feed into more procs, but it may be more opportunity. This is literally my first day playing it, and just the lessons that I'm learning so far. Maybe better to play a single target Holy Shock into this type of team that's going to tunnel your lock, just to get more effective healing glimmers on a single target. Maybe play the AoE build into classes that do more AoE damage. Here we're in Hammer of Justice. We're coming out. Our target's stunned. We want to dispel that as soon as possible. So we're just going to dispel the Hammer of Justice off our Warlock, and then start fishing for Denounces in a moment because they're basically all dead. We can use our Holy Prism here offensively. Does a bunch of damage. Get them in a Hammer of Wrath range, and we're able to kind of just finish off the match. Obviously, the plays here could be a lot more cleaner, using the Blessing of Protection to deny the enemies of their execute range, to remove effects like Warbreaker, remove effects like Sharpened Blade, or to remove effects like stuns are generally the best time to use Blessing of Protection, as opposed to waiting for the target to be really low and then like, oh god, I need to bop him to stop him from dying. Usually you can see the damage coming before it happens, and it's going to be those triggers against a warrior, so Sharpened Blade, Warbreaker, or a stun. And it's just better to use the bop early before you're CC'd, before they're low, and then you can't recover, because there are situations where if you fall behind on getting your setup going, you're gonna just end up losing the game. So better to stay ahead of the damage, use the bop to remove those effects, or even to sacrifice preemptively. If you notice enemies running at you, you can activate sacrifice onto your ally that's being attacked, and then you'll break the crowd control or redirect enough damage during the crowd control that they're not going to end up going down. I do think it is generally better to cast Tears Deliverance and Hand of Divinity behind a pillar, even sometimes before the game is like even started. Like, just kind of observe enemies as they're running in and they've dismounted, they're charging, finish casting Tears, finish casting Hand of Divinity. So you've got big heals just already loaded. We've got Glimmer up onto 2 targets here with our Holy Shocks. We're back behind the pillar, we're observing where the enemies are. I see the Death Knight Chains of Icing, and look, Warriors leaping in, Tears of Deliverance. We're just going to get this up, it's going to start healing. Another crazy factor is that it heals through the pillar. That may have been a more appropriate nerf than nerfing the healing overall. It's nerfing its duration or nerfing its application through the pillar, so you have to cast it in line of sight. But right now, with being able to cast it behind the pillar, it's really powerful. Get a Denounce up onto the Rep Paladin, remove their ability to crit. And here, our Tears Deliverance is just doing so much work while we're stunned. This is why it's just a good idea to precast it. We're just sitting through this pretty comfortably. We'll Sacrifice out. We see the Paladin casting Repentance. Sacrifice is going to redirect damage. It's also going to break that Repentance if they land it. Then we can go for Hand of Divinity and get some big, chonky Holy Lights here. And these Holy Lights heal for a lot, and they're going to extend our Tears Deliverance by I think 4 or 8 seconds total between the two of them. So it's a really good extension, a really good ability to heal through burst damage. And you can see that I haven't had to use my Avenging Wrath yet because I've pre-casted the Tears Deliverance. So I can chain Deliverance into Wings, into Deliverance, and just have this massive window of bonus healing, which is basically going to make my team completely unkillable. We're just chilling in the back line. We use Blessing of Protection to remove Warbreaker here against the Warrior onto the Warlock. It's also now enabling the Warlock to free cast, sit comfortably in the middle, and do a lot of damage, which is really important if you're healing a caster with a lot of melee in the lobby, that you make them comfortable and able to cast and do damage, because otherwise they just end up falling over and running away and lining you and doing nothing. So be really careful with that. We got a Hammer of Wrath proc, toss that out, does a bunch of damage, does a bunch of healing, keeping our team totally topped. And now we can get Denounces out. You got to pre-denounce out onto the Rep before getting CC'd, so now they can't crit. And because they have Unstable Affliction, that's a really gnarly combo of spells to get out on the target. That's why I'm trying to spam Denounce and stay at a distance when you go to caster against melee cleave. Holy Paladin's pushing in, getting too close. He's going to get Hammer Justiced. We're going to toss out some Denounces onto the Holy Paladin as well and prevent them from critting. And this is where I'm expending most of my Holy Power. Our Warlock is stunned up. I want to dispel that as soon as possible. I see Warbreaker on the Warlock, but they've already activated Unending Resolve, so they're already taking less damage. Using a bop here would be a bit of an overlap, so I'm going to let the Unending Resolve do the work and just absolutely go for the kill, dunk them, and finish them off. So you can see by precasting the Tears Deliverance and getting it stacked up, you can just keep it going for almost forever. Get Avenging Wrath up, rolling into the next cooldown of it, chain them together. You can really do whatever you want. This class is really powerful at the moment. Rotate Blessing of Summer onto the bursty targets. Try and use Blessing of Winter onto yourself, as it's going to give you mana back. And I haven't even talked about Daybreak, but as you get a lot of glimmers out on multiple targets, you want to consume them with Daybreak, and then reapply them all with Holy Shock, with Divine Toll. So it'll be like a Daybreak. You slurp all of your glimmers in to get mana, and then you just whoop them all back out with Divine Toll. That's a combo that I got better at doing in the lobby after this lobby, but the tip that is definitely important to utilize if you want to start having success on your Paladin. So I'm going to have the talents linked in the description down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary, and it's going to get you guys up and running on your Paladins and start seeing some success. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please thumbs up and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated.